From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Calling Trayvon, and I started hearing a little bit of Trayvon saying, get off, that's crap.
Okay, let me stop you a second. You heard a grass sound and then you said something. What did you say?
I was trying to say Trayvon, what's going on?
And what did you hear?
I said, Trayvon, I kind of heard Trayvon saying, get off.
Trayvon Martin's friend testifies about the last time she heard his voice, just moments before the 17-year-old unarmed teenager was shot dead by George Zimmerman. We'll get the latest on the Zimmerman trial. Then the Senate passes an overhaul of the nation's immigration laws, creating a path to citizenship for millions while adding unprecedented new border security measures.
It's unbelievable. It's unprecedented. The decision that was taken by Democrats and Republicans this week to militarize our border communities. This is enough. This is not the reform that we asked for.
And the Obamas arrive in South Africa as Nelson Mandela remains in critical condition. Yesterday, they visited Gorée Island in Senegal, where Africans were shipped across the Atlantic Ocean into slavery. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Senate's approved the long-awaited immigration reform bill that creates a path to citizenship for millions of undocumented immigrants while imposing unprecedented new measures for border security. 14 Republicans joined a united Democratic caucus to pass the bill by a vote of 68-32. It includes an amendment that radically expands enforcement along the U.S.-Mexico border, spending $46 billion to nearly double the number of border agents to 40,000, expand the use of drones, and construct around 700 miles of border fencing. The measure now faces an uncertain fate in the House, where Speaker John Boehner says he will not allow a vote without the majority support of Republican members. We'll have more on the immigration bill later in the broadcast. The latest disclosures from NSA documents leaked by Edward Snowden to The Guardian show the U.S. government collected bulk metadata on the emails of millions of Americans for about 10 years. Under a program that fell under the overall NSA domestic surveillance operation known as Stellar Wind, the government swept up information including email accounts and IP addresses, but not the contents of the messages themselves. The program began by targeting emails with at least one party outside the U.S., but expanded in 2007 to domestic messages. The Obama administration continued the effort after taking office before shutting it down in 2011. The disclosures confirmed the claims of William Binney, the career NSA official turned whistleblower. Binney has said the NSA took an electronic surveillance program he developed, Thin Thread, and used it to conduct mass surveillance on a national scale. He resigned from the NSA in 2001 in opposition to what he called illegal spying. According to The Guardian, the collection of Internet metadata appears to have triggered the famed March 2004 confrontation in the hospital room of then-Attorney General John Ashcroft when he refused to sign off on reauthorizing the warrantless surveillance program. Ecuador is defiantly resisting U.S. calls to reject Edward Snowden's asylum bid. On Thursday, the Ecuadorian government said it would waive preferential trade rights after U.S. officials suggested they could be revoked. In Washington, U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman said the Obama administration will evaluate Ecuador's eligibility for trade benefits and review a petition calling for their revocation. Froman's comments came one day after Democratic Senator Robert Menendez said welcoming Snowden would severely jeopardize U.S. relations with Ecuador. In Quito, Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa said his country's dignity has no price.
All of a sudden, trade tariffs became an instrument of blackmail. Behave or leave the free trade movement. In the face of threats, insolence, and arrogance of certain U.S. sectors, which have pressured to remove the preferential tariffs because of the Snowden case, Ecuador tells the world, we unilaterally and irrevocably denounce the preferential tariffs. Our dignity has no price.
President Correa's government followed up with a dig at the Obama administration by offering to donate millions of dollars for human rights training in the United States on matters of, quote, privacy, torture, and other actions that are denigrating to humanity, unquote. Later in the day, Correa said Ecuador cannot evaluate Snowden's asylum bid until he's within Ecuadorian territory. Snowden is believed to remain in a transit area of a Moscow airport. Speaking during his visit to Senegal, President Obama said he expects other countries to hand Snowden over without having to resort to diplomatic wrangling, but play down talk of an international rift over Snowden's fate.
My continued expectation is that Russia or other countries that have talked about potentially providing Mr. Snowden asylum recognize that they are part of an international community and that they should be abiding by international law. And we'll continue to press them as hard as we can to make sure that they do so. But let me, one last thing, because you asked a final question. No, I'm not going to be scrambling jets to get a 29-year-old hacker.
Edward Snowden's leaking of National Security Agency documents appears to have come after a major change of heart on the issue of government whistleblowers. In online chat logs from 2009 released this week, someone using Snowden's screen name criticized the disclosure of classified government information, saying those who do so, quote, should be shot. The criticism came in response to a New York Times article based on leaked information about U.S. cyber attacks on Iran. A former top-ranking Pentagon general is reportedly under investigation for leaking the information that publicly exposed a U.S. cyber warfare operation against Iran. NBC News reports retired Marine General James Hoss Cartwright, the former vice chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has been notified of a Justice Department probe into whether he leaked information to the New York Times on the computer virus known as Stuxnet. The U.S. used Stuxnet to sabotage the systems at Iran's nuclear facilities, but in doing so accidentally set off a computer worm across the global internet. Cartwright retired from the military in August of 2011. An exiled Syrian opposition group has put the death toll in Syria's more than 2-year civil war at over 100,000. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says it arrived at the figure by adding up its daily tally of killings since the conflict began in March 2011. The UN reported in April a death toll of over 93,000. The family of former South African President Nelson Mandela says his condition remains critical but stable. Mandela's daughter says he's responding to touch but is also warning that anything is imminent. President Obama arrives in South Africa today to continue his 3-nation African tour.